So some of you are probably asking, what is all this for? Where's all this leading? And one of the places where it should be leading is for you to start making up your own characters, telling your own stories and your own jokes. And here's a guy that did just that way, way back in the day. This is a book about Harvey Kurtzman, who was the writer cartoonist who created Mad magazine way back in the 50s. And this little thin paperback is his autobiography in words and pictures of who he is. I should say who he was because he has passed on. And how he got to be one of the great cartoonists. One of the things he did was he made up this one-page comic strip for, I guess it was Timely Comics, working for Stan Lee, called Hey Look. And it's just one-page gags of characters that he created. And just in so many panels, there's his joke. Setup and joke. Payoff. Here's another one, Sheldon, another character he made up. Potshot Pete, Takeoff on Westerns. And his style of drawing is so unique to him. He also created 2 more comics for EC called Frontline Combat and Two-Fisted Tales. But his crowning achievement was Mad Magazine, in which he did takeoffs first on comic books and then on movies. And so that was his thing. Here's one of the great ones, Takeoff on Superman, The Lone Ranger, Popeye. Made a magazine called Humbug. He did a magazine called Help. He was one of the greatest cartoonists. And here he shows you how he does it. And he says he starts with just writing on a piece of paper his gag. And then on another sheet of paper, he breaks it down into 8 panels to make the gag. Figures out what's the lettering going to be. His little script here. And then he starts to letter it. He has an idea as to what's going to be in each panel. Then he does a rough drawing of each panel. And then he starts to tighten up the rough drawing. And then he inks the rough drawing. And that's how comics are made. Here the gag is that he's looking at this lake saying, wow, the water is so clear and reflective, it seems like it's a mirror. And he jumps into it, and it turns out that it really is a mirror. So here you can see all the steps taken to make a comic strip. So that's one book of Kurtzman that I have. And then another one is the Illustrated Harvey Kurtzman Index, which is all the work he did in his career. And you get even more, an even bigger idea as to what he did as this creator, this writer-artist. There's a bunch of Hey Looks in here. Just all of the work that he did up to a certain point, I guess 1980 or so, is in this index. He created Little Annie Fanny for Playboy magazine. Just so much stuff. His style is so unique. Nobody could draw like that. Then I was in San Francisco and I went to the comic book museum they have up there, and I bought this because they had done a retrospective of his work. And this is the book that goes with it. And you see even more examples of his great artwork. Just so unique. And his humor and drawing style are just so nice. And towards the back, you see how he roughs in his work is done. and you see this page with all this rough drawing in it. The writing is in orange and the balloons, approximations. And then you see the finished page where it's been painted by Will Elder, but the drawings and the planning and everything that goes into it, figuring out the compositions, just so great. Now, on that part, the compositions, there's this book, Framed Ink, which is all about drawing and composition for visual storytellers. That's you. All of you are visual storytellers. And this book is a great, well, maybe not an introduction, but an explanation as to what and how to compose your pictures when you're telling stories. And in your case, you will be telling stories or drawing up gags. So here's a great book to get that explains a lot of things about how to compose a picture. And what he does is he will do this drawing, and here is a breakdown as to what that composition is in simplistic terms. It's a dark, but then there's light. And you see that? And there. This arrow shows you where your eye is going to go. Your eye is going to start here and go up to this guy's head and then down at what he's looking at. And that's what composition is all about, is leading the eye, mostly in a pleasing way. Here again, you see this great picture of these horses. The masses are dark here, the darkness of this horse and the darkness of this horse and the rider. Break it down into simplistic shapes like this on a field of white. So, like I said, another great book for you to check out. Composing for continuity means telling a story in successive pictures. Another chapter. How to use line when you're doing graphic novels. Creating characters. Designing characters so that you have a simplistic shape, a silhouette, and from there you add details to further define the character. Full bodies. Everything has to be, well, not well thought out. You don't want to overthink it, but you do want to think about it and think, well, what am I trying to get across? Panels and pages, how they all fit together to make a whole. If you do a simple grid system like this, the Watchmen comic was like this, or if you break it up into other shapes like this, where's the eye going? Or if you break it up still more odd shapes like this. So, like I said, a really wonderful book. And what you should be doing is writing your ideas down and then drawing them. Figuring out, am I going to do a comic book? Am I doing an animated film, a short film? Am I doing a comic strip? But just start drawing your ideas. Start writing out your ideas, start drawing them out, and figure out how you're going to put them across. In the meantime, keep creating, and we'll see you next time.